Hey, this is Mo Lunsford at Union Grove Lumber Studios.
And this is the Shed Geek. We want to welcome you to today's episode.
Thank you, guys. How about Chris Pittman? Give him a hand, guys. Be sure to... I don't know if there's a bigger name in sales than Grant Cardone. I'm sure there's some that are probably more favorable. But to come out of that camp, Chris, you've definitely done great. Chris is the one that said something. Believe it or not, guys, I had this tan pair of slacks ready to go. I got my Air Force Ones Dylan was talking about. Those of you that are sneakerheads, you'll know. Kyle might know, Matt might know, but everybody else is like, what are you talking about? We end up driving down in our RV to stay here. Let me tell you something a little fun. Knoxville doesn't normally get 6 to 8 inches of snow, which is also why you see about 40 tickets purchased, probably 40 to 50, as I understand, that aren't here, haven't checked in, or maybe here tomorrow, outside of also the travel was sort of tough. But we're actually parked on top of the University of Tennessee parking garage right now in our RV because it's the only place we could get that's a full covered sheet of ice. So lots of fun. We thought we'd get a hotel room, but let's take the RV, and that worked out about like the movie. So thankful for the opportunity to be here. I want to start by discussing communication. Even before we even introduce anybody, how can I do my possible best on stage here today with our speakers to communicate with you effectively? How do we know that communication is taking place? Can anybody give me an answer to that? How do we know that we have communicated something to you today that has helped you? Anybody, shout it out. Don't be afraid, because I'm a big audience participation kind of guy. So feel free to just warm up to being here at the event and talk to me like I'm your neighbor. How do we know communication has taken place? What's that? It's already full? So you're taking notes. So you're obviously focusing on that. I heard somebody say something recently that really struck a chord with me. They said, communication's only taken place once you've comprehended the communication that's existed. Because I can tell you something all day long, but if you don't take it and put it into motion, if you don't actually use the communication that's taken place here today, then I don't know if we've served you as best we can. How can we communicate today? That's what we're here for, is to talk about education. So what the Shed U event is trying to continue your education so that you will be more informed and better at what you do. James 1:5 says, let any man who lacks knowledge, let him ask, and he'll receive it. So, okay, let's introduce the speakers. So, I'll start with myself, Shannon Latham, Shed Geek Podcast. Some of you have listened to it. A couple of you have been on the show probably. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have related to Shed Geek, its brand, the branding, and the just the extensions of what it's becoming. It's been a really awesome ride. Worked in shed sales. I actually started with a company in West Kentucky called Graceland Portable Buildings in the purchasing procurement department. Good friend of mine was in Navy intelligence, ended up working for Graceland, and became a pastor. And we were just kind of what I like to say roughnecks whenever we were young. And he invited me to church, and that changed my life. And then he invited me into the shed industry, and that's changed my life. So since then, moved into sales management, ended up working in RTO for a bit, and now find myself in the most obscure place of marketing, which is a place I never thought that I would be. So that's what we're here today to represent, and I've got two guys on the stage with me, and I could introduce them, but I'll tell you what, I'm just going to let them go and give a little thought for, as I say on the show, who they are and what they do. So Dylan, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, guys, my name is Dylan Street. From Metropolis, Illinois. If you don't know, it's the home of Superman. My mom actually lived on Lois Lane for like 7 years. Quite interesting. But born and raised there, so I like to say that we sleep in Metropolis and do life in Paducah, Kentucky. So Western Kentucky, Southern Illinois. It's where my roots are. And as far as like me in the shed industry, I've never actually wanted to get into it, but it keeps always drawing me back somehow. So when I first started, I was a logger, heavy machinery operator, and then I was a logger for years. And I started doing freelance video work some years ago, and then when I jumped out on my own, Shannon and Kyle, they were selling for a company called Summit, and they had an extra room in there, so I moved in there, and that's when I jumped out in faith and started working on my own. Now, when I did that, you know, I didn't understand the shed industry. I just didn't get it, right? I just didn't fully comprehend all the legs of it and what made it the shed industry. So I did get to know different people. We did some really cool films for some different companies. I remember Dave with SmartPay. He flew me up to Lancaster, and we did a film with him. So I've always been part of it, but I just never saw myself in it. So it's always kind of had this just this pull on me throughout time, and I guess eventually that I gave in, and I really enjoyed it. And I will say that in the shed industry, of course, as you know, I'm the president of Shed Geek Marketing, so you know we do all the accounts and figure out what angles that we should figure out where the manufacturers want to go and grow, and then we figure out a plan on how to accomplish that. And so in that, I will say that bringing on or onboarding a shed company, you know, sometimes it could take months. Like you plant a seed, you let them know you want to work with them, and you may not hear anything for months and months. But I will say that it's probably the hardest clients to get, but they're the most loyal clients to have. And you know, it might be a weakness, but I'd say that my relationships, you know, with all of our clients, we just become really good friends. Sometimes even best friends, and I enjoy that. We shot a video with Marvin Raber in Central Indiana not long ago, and then once we got to know each other, he asked me to come speak at a school, completely unshed related. But I don't know, I just really enjoy the industry. I think that we've kind of figured out where the industry's at. We're kind of moving into this pre-COVID era where digital marketing is almost a must if you want to keep the leads coming in. And so, you know, we've just figured out a way that we can, you know, keep bringing leads in as we move into this kind of digital era. So very excited to be here. Appreciate everybody that came. Hopefully some more people will start rolling in, and I'll pass it over to Jeff.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Jeff Huxman. I guess my path into the shed industry is probably very atypical. I grew up in Wisconsin. This 6 or 8 inches of snow we've got outside here is pretty normal this time of year for Wisconsin, so it's kind of entertaining to see, you know, days afterwards. A lot of the sidewalks aren't shoveled here in Knoxville, but hey, that's all right. Anyhow, so I grew up in Wisconsin, went to college in Wisconsin, taught myself coding in the late 90s. The college I attended, you know, the internet was brand new. There wasn't a whole lot of computer courses at the college I went to, so I taught myself. And then I had a long stint as a wildlife video maker, documentary filmmaker, worked for companies like National Geographic and Animal Planet. And then I married into Southern Ohio about 17 years ago, and about the age of 30, I moved there, and there was zero demand for video production, and I met some Amish folks who were needing some marketing services, and they hired me to do some Photoshop work and brochures and things like that. And then one day they came to me and said, hey, we bought a shed company. Can you do some marketing for us there? So I started working on some pamphlets and literature for them, and then they were like, hey, Jeff, you used to code, right? And I was like, yeah. Well, we've got all this inventory out here. We don't know where it's going. We don't know how much we've made, and we don't know how to keep track of it, and because we're Amish, we can't use a computer. Is there something that you can do for us code-wise that can be done over like a phone and a fax? And so I created something called Shed Hub, which was initially just inventory tracking system that can be done over phone and fax for this one company. And then over a year or two, we realized that, hey, there's no two-sided marketplace like an Auto Trader or a Zillow for the shed industry. So we created something called shedhub.com together. Some of you here might be using the platform. And so that was basically a marketplace that I helped create with a number of other people. And I've sort of gotten to know a lot of different people in the shed industry through that. That's how I met Shannon and Dylan. And in terms of what I do with Shed Geek Marketing now is, Shed Hub has a lot of SEO, search engine optimization, so that people who are selling sheds across the country can show up on Google searches and other internet searches. So that's sort of how I lend my expertise to Shed Geek Marketing, and that's sort of why I'm on the panel today, to help talk tech a little bit.
Hello from the Shed Geek. Let's take a walk through My Shed 3D. With My Shed 3D, your company can simply add a 3D builder button to its website. Once the customer clicks onto the 3D builder button, they will enter some basic information to get started. Remember, this information is captured in your Leads tab, whether or not the customer designs a building. This is very valuable information that turns a cold call into a warm lead. Next, they begin the design of their shed by selecting a primary use, a style, and a size that best fits their need. My Shed 3D has multiple styles that are available and consistent with traditional and barn styles within the shed industry. However, if you offer a customized or non-traditional style, My Shed Solutions can build that design for future use. We can also save on some design features that make it easy to adjust without a major rebuild or added fees for design changes. For instance, want to offer a steeper roof pitch? Just navigate to the Settings tab. Then click the Building Models. Click Edit Building and just enter the new roof center height, and the design changes will reflect on this style option. This will save you thousands versus traditional design changes that need to build a whole new style to match your design. From here, simply choose the style, siding, and color. Then choose a trim and roofing style and color. Next, let's add a door. That was goofy. Next, let's add a door. It is required to add a door to move forward with the design, as at least one ingress-egress option is necessary. Then add some design changes for personalization. Maybe some windows, or a porch, or some interior shelving. Next, just click Save Design and the customer will receive an automated text with all the features of the design to the email address entered at the beginning. From here, they can edit the design, view the details of the design, pay now to order the shed, or click Rent to Own to complete the necessary steps to purchase a shed they designed with My Shed 3D. The design enters the admin panel as a quote, and this is where the manufacturer can update the progress of the design once a deposit is taken. My Shed, from design to delivery, we have you covered.
Perfect. Thank you, Jeff. Yeah. Gosh, so what you see right now is what I like to call a collaborative effort. There's a lot of talk about collaboration, a lot of talk about competition. I give the shed haulers a lot of credit. A lot of those guys really started on this kick of, sharing is caring, together is a little bit better, and we don't have to be each other's enemy. There's sort of a higher calling to our life, even before our business, and as this industry continues to mature, that we can work together, that you can work together even across the country with other shed dealers who are seeing success, and you want to pull on that success to try and learn the best you can. And that's kind of the emergence of, I think, sort of where Shed U is rooted, is trying to create maybe somewhat of a dealer network. I'll let Matt speak on that more, but sort of a dealer network to grow, learn, and be better, and for us to all come together and kind of put down our shield and sword for the day to communicate and make for a better customer experience overall. So Jeff's work with Shed Hub, and Dylan, what he didn't share is Dylan has a very successful marketing company, even outside of where we developed Shed Geek Marketing, probably, I don't know, 30 to 50 clients with very large ad spends and ad budgets. So he understands the industry well, and he understands marketing well enough outside of that. So what I failed to share with you was outside of the Shed Geek podcast, and I always thought this was fun, is I like to tell people a little bit about myself, and I missed that part. Over here is my wife. Since we've dated since I was 15 years old, so we've been married now for 24 years. And you may see a younger, much skinnier, better-looking version of me walking around with the gimbal and the camera around back. That is my youngest son, Troy, who's 19. Ambitious, and I love to brag on him because this kid ended up with a 4.2 GPA on a 4.0 scale. So I like to say, if I'm not smart, at least somebody from my loins ended up being smart. So thank goodness. So be sure to just say hello to them if you have any questions. Outside of that, really simple. We also live in Metropolis. I live right down the road from Dillon. We operate the Shed Geek podcast twice weekly, every Wednesday and Thursday. We have a show we're coming up on, getting ready to close in soon on 100,000 listens. Year 4 will start March 1st. And that's sort of just been an effort of a lot of different people in the industry, some of them in this room. And really, it's just to talk about sheds. It's to tell your story. It's to tell the history of the shed industry, and to really just bring together community. I think that's really the heartbeat of what the Shed Geek podcast is. Outside of that, I'm pretty boring. I spend all my time in my office, pretty much on a computer anymore.
On the phone.
On the phone. I log a lot of hours on the phone, I'm sad to say, but I do. And that's just building community and conversation and connectivity with the industry, and maybe even connecting others when at times it has no benefit even to myself. You're welcome to ask any questions. Deanna has a mic, so we'll go around and do that here in a little bit once we sort of finish with our presentation. Outside of that, I don't really have anything to add. I am the owner of the world's second largest air guitar collection. Thank you for those who got that. And I actually have the world's first largest seashell collection, and you've probably seen some of the work. We keep it scattered on beaches all across the world. So that is, thank you, Nate, for that joke. It just, Nate from Burnett's Affordable gave me that one, and I really appreciate it. So I want to build, I want to start with this. There's two forms of businesses that exist in the world. This is what my college teaching taught me. Does anybody know the two forms of business? There's only two. What are they? Two that I know of. Don't be afraid to shout it out. What can you sell? You can only sell two things. Products and services. If you are a shed salesperson, which one are you selling? Thank you. You are selling both. And there's a ton of people who really get caught up on product information, and I think that's awesome, because Dylan probably heard me for a lot of times when he was sitting in that office in there quizzing myself, and even Andrew Woods, God bless his soul, just passed with LP Smart Siding, about, a 10-year and 50-year warranty and everything that I could possibly think of and know from the product. But what I felt like I was struggling on was the service side, and I really had to tap into sort of my roots, and that really came from, of all places, our little town of 6,500 has the Midwest's first casino. It's brought there by Merv Griffith back in 1990, the owner of Wheel of Fortune, and they were doing that to try to help a starving community. Little did we know it would maybe have an adverse effect, right? So at the time I'm 11 years old, so I don't really understand the politics and all those things, but what I did learn was that I needed to work, needed a job, and I grew up in a town of 150 people, so there's even less work, right? We got hit with the same thing as all America did with industry leaving, and I'm left without a job and a declining economy. So I go to work at the casino, and I'm very staunch. I just come from being a supervisor at a jail. Yeah, I know that sounds crazy to think about, but it's the truth. And what I learned there was that they were intense on their customer service. And so one thing, if I could understand anything about the casino that they taught me that I'm appreciative for, is that they're very, very purposeful on their customer service. What happens? What product do you leave with once you've went to the casino? Nothing. In most cases, nothing at all, right? But you're not walking out with anything tangible. So I really had to learn how to service the customer. I mean, it was really important. We had meetings beforehand that we would talk about that was called a buzz. What's the buzz? What's going on? You know, like we had to find out what's the promotion of the day? What's the newest thing, the latest thing happening? We'd have to participate in games like 2 Truths and 1 Lie. Everybody would have to be involved and they'd have to be engaged. And if you were just really super grumpy like I was, you'd have to carry a smile in your back pocket because it was mandatory to smile. So it was nothing for me to hit those doors and just, there we are. How's it going today, Mr. Jones? My name's Shannon. If you got any questions, just let me know. I'll be happy to help you. So you really learn how to be just like super intense on focusing on the customer. And it sort of changed my life because it began to change like who I was as a person. I went from this grumpy jail administrator type to all of a sudden learning how to care for people on the most basic needs. Where's the restroom? It's not right down there, Miss Jones. It's just walk this way with me, Miss Jones, and we'll take you down here and I'll make sure that you get there safely or whatever. You had to focus on serving the customer very, very, very intentionally. Then I get to the shed industry. And the shed industry's got what we like to call order takers and we got order makers. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? How many of you own a shed company? How about that? Let's start there. So how many of you have, well, maybe you don't want to share this, but I'll tell you what, let's just see, just testing my shed knowledge here if this sounds about right. You have a dealer lot? How many of you have a dealer lot? You got 5, 10, 20, 30 dealers. How many times does it go like this? You've got number 1 and you've got number 2 always competing for first place. Let's say you've got 10, 15 lots. Number 1 and 2 are competing and you're like, man, these guys are great. If I just had number 1 and number 2 always, oh man, we'd be killing it. But then number 2 through number 8 seem like they're fairly interchangeable. Oh, this is great. They're probably putting up 400,000, 600,000, whatever it is a year in sales. And you're like, you know what? I could really exchange from number 2 to number 8 in most cases. Now, this might not be your perfect situation, but in general. And then number 9 and 10 are always struggling. Always struggling. Never can seem to come up with anything. And to be honest with you, you're always on the hook on whether you want to let number 10 go or not anyway. But you won't because you're the shed industry and you're so kind that you really want to put the effort into them. And that's why you're here today. And that's why they should be here today, is because they're trying to learn more. They're trying to understand what is possible. I want to start with that. What's possible? You've heard the story before, maybe if you've listened to the podcast, but I'll tell it again. I definitely remember the first time I went to a shed lot, and on that shed lot was a 20-year veteran of selling sheds. And I said, hey, they've hired me as a new sales manager. I'm trying to get my feet wet, but I feel like there's a lot I can learn from you as well, too. You've got 20 years in this. Yeah, I've got 20 years. I've sold for 2 companies. He's very proud of that. I don't hop around to a bunch of different companies, right? Like I sold for these 2 guys, and I said, well, what's your average month in sales? And I had sold sheds for a little bit, and he said, it's about 20,000. It's like, okay. So what's your best month in sales? And he says, probably hit around 40,000 or so. And I said, okay, well, what if you blow it out of the water? What are shed guys doing that is just amazing? He said, well, I've been selling sheds for 20 years. And if you get 50 to 60,000 a month, you're pretty well, you're doing it. You're killing it. And I said, well, what if you could sell $250,000 in sales a month? And he's immediately out, right? It's not possible. I mean, I've been doing this for 20 years. I mean, it's great that you want to come in and do that and that sounds good, but you can't do $250,000 in sales. It's not realistic. So whatever you're here to train me, I'm an old dog, right? You can't teach me new tricks. So, but the thing is, I've sold $250,000 in a month. So now you have to convince me. The burden's yours, isn't it? You have to convince me why it's not possible. Why is it not possible? I don't understand. So I'd start with that first thought. What is possible? There might be people here today that came in and they think that $50,000 number was the best that I could possibly do. And you're limiting yourself whenever you don't educate yourself and seek out always. What did Chris say? The difference in a pro and an amateur? An amateur does it until they get it right. A pro does it until they don't get it wrong. So you should always be educating yourself, trying to do more, or trying to do better. Right now is that slow season, right? Post-COVID. And you see a little chatter on Facebook, or you see a little chatter among your dealer network, or as you talk to other guys. How many conversations happen in the hallway? What are you guys seeing in your neck of the woods? Guys, you're looking at the reason for the purpose of the podcast there is because I got to hearing this so many different times with so many different people. Why not bring people on and talk about that in a way that's non-competitive? And let's do better. Let's do better for ourselves, let's do better for our company, and let's do better for the customer. So that's what we want to discuss in marketing. Marketing is the foundation for sales. Can anyone give me a marketing definition?
Digital Shed Builder is an online shed configurator that strives to provide incredible visual quality, fantastic customer service, and an amazingly low price point, making it a perfect fit for any shed dealer looking to increase their online sales. Digital Shed Builder is simple to use, taking less than 5 minutes to integrate on your site. The Get a Quote feature streamlines your sales process, showing you exactly what your potential customers need. They offer a highly customizable experience that accurately represents your brand and unique shed offerings, working with you directly to set up everything you need in a configurator. With no extra startup cost, no lengthy contracts or commitments, and no hidden fees, Digital Shed Builder has been created with quality, simplicity, and affordability in mind.
What is your definition of marketing? Don't be afraid to holler it out. If you don't know, that's okay, but I'm curious at what your thought is if you have one today on marketing. Nobody. Lead generation. Okay. So I'm going to give you the definition, and I'll let you guys stew over it. The definition of marketing is the activity of a business promoting and selling products or services. We've already discussed products and services, right? So we understand that we have to do both. We have to sell a product. We have to service that customer as well. I bet RTO companies in here know that. JMAG's in here, RTO National's in here. Their customer becomes your customer. Think about your customer becomes theirs. Think about the dynamic that they have to deal with. You sold this shed on an RTO contract, and now you have to hand that customer off to them to trust them, but then they also have to pick up the pieces of what might not have been explained, possibly. So I guess, let's see, it says selling products and services including market research and advertising. And the question I got today, and I want anybody to shout it out, is it says the promotion of. How do you promote? How do you promote your sheds currently? What is your avenue to promote your sheds? Anybody? Facebook. Always a big one, right? How else do you promote your sheds? Google. Good. Anything else? Brochures. It also says that you sell. But how do you sell? How do you sell? Because there's a difference, and that's the second thing to take away today, is that there's a difference in marketing and sales. And as your company begins to grow and you begin to organize, it's fine to take that hat of sales guy off, procurement, order taker, builder, occasional fill-in on a delivery. As your company begins to grow and mature, it's good to develop actual plans and actual strategies that you have to move forward in your marketing and your sales adventure. I put down here the difference between product-based and service-based. And you guys kind of hit on that already, so I don't want to go back over this. What market research do you do? How do you advertise? Advertising definition: the activity or profession of producing advertisement for commercial products or services. How do you produce advertisement? How does it differ from marketing? The sales definition: the exchange of a commodity for money, the action of selling something. So let's build up a marketing shed. That's what we want to do here today. I'll put my phone away here, and we want to educate everybody on marketing, and that's the guys that we have here today. So Jeff kind of talked about SEO. I want to first say Jeff's way more than an SEO strategist. He has a brilliant tech brain that I rely on a lot because I don't have that. So what I've learned to do is to collaborate with people around me who have the tools that I need to kind of help me see the success that I want to see in my life. I've forged out a path for myself that I want to accomplish, and I know that I can't do all of those things on my own, so that's the collaborative effort we have here today. Dylan is I would say that Dylan is the Willie Mays of the shed industry. And I don't know if there's any baseball fans in here, but Willie Mays was a complete five-tool player, much like Barry Bonds or the new Ronald Acuna. You may see him for the Atlanta Braves. He can throw, he can hit, he can steal bases. He's just one of those guys that finds his way into every area of everything and just seems to do well with it. And I think a lot of that's got to do with his testimony. And if you have questions about that, you can ask him. But let's start with building marketing shed. And Deanna's got a microphone, so she'll go around and get questions if you guys just raise your hand. And we'll get to a more extensive maybe Q&A. But I want to start with the educational factor of marketing. Dylan, I'm gonna let you start here. I've taken enough stage time here, but I want you to kind of give the idea to the shed industry from your perspective of what building digital assets looks like versus sort of in a digital storefront versus a brick and mortar storefront.
Yeah, so as I try to build this marketing shed and tie these two things together, just give me some grace that I don't build sheds, okay? All right, so, we always start with, if you were to build a shed, what's the first thing you start with? What is that? Yeah, so most people say runners, right? Is that right? Am I right? Okay, start with runners. So what is that? Now, we got two roads to go down. So oftentimes we get companies that already are established in some way, shape, or form. They have a logo, they have a Facebook page, they might have a website, but we also have some people that they've been building sheds. They don't really have a brand, but they have a lot and they're selling. So we're gonna start from two different angles here, but let's start from scratch. Your runners is, your branding and your logo. So if you're about to start a business, you've got to figure out, okay, who are we, right? What do we want to represent? What do we want people to feel when they see our logo, right? So, think of just people that have done it well, like Coca-Cola or Geico or Apple. I mean, everybody, you can see the logo in your mind because they've done well at branding it and putting it in front of you. Likewise, you have to think, there's even things as deep as what do different colors mean? What does yellow mean on a logo? What does red mean? How does that transpond? Because in any type of marketing endeavor, what you're doing is you're trying to control the narrative of thoughts in your potential customer. Does that make sense? You're trying to literally control the sentences that they're saying in their inner dialogue whenever you're doing any type of branding, advertising, marketing. And the first thing you'll start with is logos, and we call it brand guidelines. And a lot of times that encapsulates your mission statement, your values, your goals, the who we are. What's the backbone of this business and inside of this industry. So, as you start from there, and then you start, what would be the next step after runners? What would be the next step? Building a real shed. Joist. Okay, awesome. Joist. So what would come after logos and brand guidelines? Well, I would say that, first we got to work on your copyright content. What's the language you use when you speak to people? When you're making a Facebook post, on your Google My Business, you've got an About Us or a description section. Generally on a website, you have, some sort of small blurb about you, maybe on the top, maybe a tagline, something along those lines, right? So you have to get your copyright content, is what we call it, together. What's the next step? Third step. Marvin, you're spitting them out. What you got next? Huh? Floors. Okay, very well. So floors, this is where I would first start building your digital assets. Generally, I would probably say start with your Facebook, your Instagram, your TikTok, your Google My Business. And why I say that is because you can actually get your business started maybe while your website's still being built or being redesigned. But just remember, we're talking as we're starting from scratch here. So as you're doing these things, you can start your Facebook page, your Instagram page, Google My Business, your TikTok, your LinkedIn, your Twitter, what all avenues you want to use. And I would say, as I have been rooted into the shed industry, most folks are just using Facebook for the most part. And I was on the phone with Travis Beachy not long ago. He is in Waco, Texas. He's got a really cool company. It's called Farm and Yard, and they focus very hard on branding. They do really well at it. Just their photos, their look, their vibe, their apparel. It all does well together. And he's really big on TikTok. The other day, he had somebody, they ran across, about 2 days before they came, ran across his TikTok, binge-watched it till 3 in the morning, and then 2 days later drove 5 hours into Waco. I mean, they were down, south in Texas, drove 5 hours just to buy a shed from him. I just thought that was wild. So I always try to get people to kind of break past just Facebook Marketplace. I mean, you have all kinds of different outlets. LinkedIn, that's very underutilized. You can run paid campaigns on it. And generally, LinkedIn are business professionals. So you can find people with, that own businesses or own franchises. And outside of every Dairy Queen, McDonald's, there's generally a shed, right? Am I right? They always have one in the corner because they have to put their cups and all their overstock. So just something to keep in mind is whenever you're building out, or if you're having a marketing agency or someone in-house build out your digital assets, build them all, okay? And what does that take? So if you're working with a marketing agency and if they do brand guidelines, and that's, the look, the feel, a favicon, and that's generally like a smaller version of your logo that you put in your Facebook profile. And then you can also get a banner. So everybody knows on the top of Facebook, you have your profile. Then you have your banner, right? Your long one. YouTube, you have a banner. LinkedIn, you have a banner. And they're all different sizes and shapes. And, it's good to customize those for every social media outlet that you decide to use. What's the next one? Well, let me finish with the website. So you've got your copyright, you've got all your social media assets. You can actually start promoting the business and generating revenue, but you do need to build your website. Generally, that's that's a lot longer. But you need a website. But every time, we've had about 3 calls this week. People want new websites or they want to redesign. And we enjoy doing those. We do a lot of just website jobs. We don't do their marketing. We don't do kind of the full suite of what they need. But if you're building a website and you don't have a plan to get traffic to your website's pointless. Would everybody agree? So your website, you can have a beautiful website, but if you don't plan on, running paid campaigns and you don't plan on doing any type of SEO, which there's many different types, then nobody's going to get to your website. And websites, especially in the shed industry, are not cheap because you've got, 15 shed types, you've got 4 animal shelters, you got 6 chicken coop types, you're selling pergolas, you're selling gazebos, you're selling, all these things, and all of those different models deserve their own page. Then you got, your financial resources page, your FAQs, just all this stuff. So a shed website can quickly be 20, 30 pages, and each of those pages built from scratch, it's a lot of work and it can be very expensive. What is the next step in the shed building process?
Hey, Deanna, I need to write a new ad for Shed Hub. Give me some ideas.
Why don't you do something catchy like the insurance commercials do all the time, where they just repeat the same thing over and over?
Like a little jingle or something like that.
Yeah,
But wouldn't that be embarrassing?
that is kind of the point.
What type of music?
Try rap.
Shed Hub helps you sell shed.
Maybe country.
Shed Hub helps you sell sheds.
Rock and roll?
Shed Hub helps you sell sheds.
Maybe just go back to your normal writing style.
Shed Geek and Shed Hub are now collaborating to make for a better customer experience. I want to save you some money. Shed Hub is focused on signing up the next 500 customers. We're calling it the Next 500 Plan.
Real creative.
You think it'll help if I sing again?
I'd rather you not.
Well, that makes two of us.
So what's the next 500 plan?
The Next 500 Plan is simple. This will include 100 listings per month, per location, along with the Brand Builder website. And the plan will last for 1 full year.
But how do they save money?
It only costs $39 a month. There's never been a better time to sign up. Just go to geek.shedhub.com, click subscribe, enter your name, email, and payment information, and you will be contacted by a Shed Hub employee to get you onboarded for just $39 per month. Shed Hub helps you sell shit.
What are we at? We're at the floors? Is that right? What's walls? Okay. Walls. So let's kind of tie everything together. You have your logo, you've got your branding and your brand guidelines. You've got your social media assets. You've got your website. Now we're going to start tying all of those things together so you can track. So we have moved away from traditional advertising. Traditional, we would consider magazine, newspaper, local television, your local news station, right? That would be what we would call traditional. Print mailers, even though, I think there's still a place for those. We're moving away from traditional, and the reason is the only thing that you can guarantee on traditional advertising is called a CPM. That means cost per mile, and for translation, that's cost per 1,000 viewers or listeners or readers. So radio, TV, and then literature, newspaper, magazine, so on and so forth. So it's a little bit different. Like for instance, maybe what's a Midco, right? They service a lot of shed manufacturers. Now, when they run an ad in a magazine like the Garage Shed Carport Builder magazine, that's a niche. So I think let's set that aside from traditional because it kind of has its niche market. But just in general, we would consider this bucket traditional advertising. Why digital advertising is such a big deal is because if you're doing it right, you can track every lead and every conversion. So let's just say, you're going to spend $2,000 on digital ads on Facebook, right? We can track your conversions. We know that $1,500 brought in 72 leads. And what we call a conversion or a lead, that is in some way, shape, or form getting the potential client in contact with you. Whether they click directions to your business, they call you, they fill out a lead form, they build they use your 3D shed builder and you get their information. That's what we would call a lead or conversion. So to build these walls, I think it boils down to about 4 things. You've got Google Analytics, which is hooked up to your website. You've got a Meta Pixel, which is a Facebook pixel, which also hooks up to your website. You've got a Google Tag Manager, which is how you track conversions. And then you have a GA4 tag, so that's also how you track conversions. So we would call those things the walls. And what that is going to do is whenever you do start running campaigns, you can start figuring out, okay, all right, we're going to start out at $1,500 a month. With $1,500 a month, we know that we're going to get 50 leads. And those leads, we try, like our main conversions for our shed clients is we want you all to get their name, phone number, email, zip code. Zip code is important because you need to know if you service their area. There's a lot of times on like Facebook ads when you're running paid campaigns, it's set up just generically when you run a campaign that people living in or interested in this location. So you may have someone that's been thought about moving at one point in their life, or they visited there recently and they live in 5 states away. Well, you don't want to target that person. So you need to get their zip code to qualify that lead. Now, what Shannon did at the very beginning, he separated sales from marketing. We do talk to our clients about the sales process. Shannon's really good about that, just because he's been through it. So we do like to know, but we can get you those things. I had a client out of Idaho the other day. We've got them, they just started, it was their first month. We got them 218 leads on Facebook alone, and each of those leads was name, phone number, email, zip code. Well, they were overwhelmed, first off, because they've never dealt with that many leads, and they haven't went through them all, but they're like, we haven't sold any. And in a nutshell, I tell them, well, I can't quite help you there. Shannon might have some input, but there's a reason you're not selling, because when we target people, these people are interested or have been looking for a shed, some sort of storage solution, or they've been looking for how to add a garage onto their house, right? We target on Facebook with interest, behaviors, and demographics. So what are they interested in? What are their online behaviors? And what's their demographic? So where are they at? So that's how I would say what we build those walls. It's going to be those tools that help you track conversions. What would be the next step? Next simple step on a real shed build? What we got? Yeah, we'll just call it the roof, because I'm running out of stuff. You know what I mean? We got to wrap this up. Yeah. So we'll call it the roof, and in the shed industry, we'll just say Google ads and Facebook ads. So we've got most of the shed built. Now we need to start driving traffic to the shed. And from that point, crafting your Google ads, we start with market research. So we generally, who your competitors are. We like to get top 5 competitors, and we can analyze everything that we're doing. We can look at every ad they're running on Google, every ad they're running on Facebook and Instagram. We can look at every ad they're running on TikTok, YouTube, pre-roll videos. We can see everything that they do. And so we can also determine where they generate their revenue at based off the type of ads they're running. So we do market research on the competitors, and then we start developing a strategy, figuring out, hey, do you offer tiny homes? Are you are you a certified tiny home builder in your area? Are you focused on just standard utility sheds? Like, what do you want your brand to push out the most? So we figure out what that is, and then we start running these campaigns. Beyond that, I'd say the last thing, let's just say we're picking out the paint, right? Picking out the paint and the trim color. That's going to be, how do we craft the ads? What are those, those different taglines that your brands, like Black's Buildings, they have a few different cool taglines, just hand-built sheds, American-made sheds, sheds built to last a lifetime. That's some of their taglines, and that's how it works. Is that right, Nathan? And that's what they're known for. So we incorporate that in every ad that we run for the most part, right? And I would also add in, kind of developing your full marketing shed, video content, photos, graphics. I get hit with shed ads all the time because you have some people that run their own ads, but they accidentally run it towards the shed industry rather than people looking for sheds. So I see them all the time, and I'll look at their Facebook page, I'll look at their logo, their branding, and the way that they word things, and then I'll look at their graphic, and the graphic's purple, but their brand is, yellow and black, and I'm just like, you've got to keep it all cohesive. You've got to keep your color codes, you've got to keep your language, you've got to keep it all together so you look like a solid brand. I mean, look at any of these bigger brands, Coca-Cola. I mean, things are red and white. You just have to look at everything and try to keep it all cohesive. So that's what I would say is the marketing shed in general. We do help a lot of people with, if they're getting leads and they're having to go to Google to find leads and go on Facebook, and we'll help them try to figure out what CRM, which is a client relations management software. That'll help you funnel all your leads into one spot, and then you can create like a pipeline on, where's this person at? We've called them, they haven't answered. This is a warm lead. This is a hot lead. This has been sold, waiting on payment, whatever that is, and we like to help there. But I'd say that's the marketing shed. Does anyone have any questions? Did I miss anything? Anyone have any questions? What you got?
So I've got a couple here. So
Here, Deanna's going to bring you the mic real quick. Yeah.
We want to get this is all recording on the mics, guys, so we want to try and create that content.
So I've got a couple questions here. So we do a lot with Facebook marketing and stuff. So a lot of the stuff you're saying around specific targeting methods, are you seeing that still holding true today versus broadband and broad marketing? So a lot of the stuff that we're seeing, if you get too specific, you're not generating the leads that you need to be generating from a lot of these marketing. And then, you know, we have used professional companies in the past that have generated 0 results because they market to a template. And a lot of people try to market this thing that says, hey, you got to do X amount of characters, you've got to have just one photo, and you've got to do these things. And we've followed that in the past with no results at all. And we went the other way. So we've done a lot of broad campaign marketing, which has gotten a lot of good results. So we spent about $30,000 on marketing last year with Facebook advertising campaigns and generated almost $700,000 in additional sales over the previous year. So everybody talks about professional photos, doing all these. What we found out is the Facebook algorithms favor more user-generated content that's not looking as professional as this stuff looks to be able to generate these kind of results. So, you know, I hear people on each side of this thing, so I just want to know where you fall out, where you hear, you know, broadband campaigns versus user-generated content versus all this professional stuff that we've done in the past that's never generated us $1 in sales.
Are you a dealer who sells multiple products at your shed lot? Are you tired of sifting through clunky or overcomplicated softwares to simply sell a product? If so, it's time to call Cal. Consumer Aligned Logistics is the affordable, simplified, and scalable solution for your shed, carport, or even RTO company. We are partnered with Idea Room and Shed Pro for configurators and have multiple RTO partners to choose from JMag to Heartland to Shed Geek Rentals and Scott's RTO. And if your partner isn't listed here, just ask. We are happy to add more. Give us a call at 425-359-3279 or visit calcanhelp.com. That's CALCANHELP.com.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are all good questions. So that ties back to our walls. You have like your GA4 tag and you have your Facebook pixel. So when we run Facebook ads for clients, we're not running one campaign. Now, if we've just started with the client, and I'll save this. I just want to touch on this, making sure that you have the data from your digital assets for, you know, the lifetime of your company. I'll come back to that. But to answer your point, if you have all these right tracking efforts, Google Analytics and your Pixel and all these things are working, what those things are doing in the background is they're gathering data, more data than we all understand. Like, I don't know if y'all know, but Google and Facebook, they know what you drive and like where you work and what you're interested in. They know what you look at on and off of the platforms. I mean, they know. I mean, if I want to sell Mercedes steering wheels to people that drive Mercedes, you can certainly get that specific. But if we just start on with a client, we will run a broad campaign. And what we'll do with that is we'll start gathering data. That way we can retarget to customers that we know are warm leads. So we always run a broad campaign that may be just a little bit more open and not completely shed specific. We may, depending on the shed company and the demographic, which, you know, people always ask, like, well, do you have a client with a $5,000 a month ad budget? How do they do? Like, well, I would love to tell you, but they're also in a population of 14 million that they service, and you're in a population of 900,000. Big difference. So, but pulling that back in, we always run broad campaigns because you have to get in front of people that you know maybe haven't been searching out these things, but it's been in their mind, right? It's not, the data is not there to pull. So we do run broad campaigns, but we also run retargeting campaigns. And what that does, it's going to bring your cost per click to the website down, your conversion, your cost per conversion down, because you've been warming them up and touching them multiple times. And I think it's important to have that funnel. What content are they seeing first in a broad campaign? What are you hitting them with second? Maybe talking about the financial options or, rent to own, just whatever it may be. So I do agree. I think that what we do is we do both. Now, on the content side, on On the content side, it depends on the brand. I think it depends on the brand. So I'll move it back to Travis Beachy at Farm and Yard. This guy, what he does like every day, he does multiple TikToks a day, and he'll just be like, had a gentleman call from so-and-so, and we've customized a shed. We just got it on the lot, about to go out for delivery, and he'll walk you around it. The guy, he does really good with organic. He doesn't do a lot of paid campaigns because TikTok is paying off very well for him. Now, he is in a very large service radio. I mean, there's a lot of people there. So, and of course, TikTok is huge. So I think it depends on the brand, right? And then, you can work with anything. I think that you can take a video that you're doing on your phone and doing a walk around, and you can spice it up where at least it shows a little bit of class, a little bit of, but it also feels raw and real. And I think it's good to push your brand, but it's also good to push your personal brand. I think most people should be doing both if they're a business owner, in my opinion. Does that answer your question for the most part? Yeah, absolutely. Here, Deanna's going to bring you that mic, okay? And if anyone else has any other questions, please, and Deanna will come, right after we get done chatting.
Yeah, I definitely want to walk back through that marketing shed some too, and then we'll do a little on-page, off-page, and a little SEO conversation.
Got to talk about
too.
data.
We have plenty of time, so.
Yeah, that's right.
So in terms of sponsored ads that you run through Facebook, so what we've seen is a lot of competitors are able to use financing terms and terminology without getting ads rejected.
Yes.
So how is that possible?
Yeah.
Every time I run an ad that runs RTO, runs some kind of no credit check, any kind of numbers, we get a lot of ad rejections. What is the workaround to getting these ads that I see every one of our competitors run with no ad rejections at all, and we get rejected, 9 out of 10 times with those?
I'm going to be honest, I don't have the answer. We have some clients where we're like, RTO a tiny home with no money down, right? And then you have one that you can't even mention rent to own or finances at all. And what we do is we start a new ads manager for that account. So if one has been rejected once, for whatever reason, the Facebook robots have caught that, we will kill that ads manager and we'll start the client a new ads manager and fire off again, because I haven't figured out how to get around that. Once they've caught you once, they'll continue to get you on that ads manager account.
And what we do, we've got several set up. So we've got one that we try the new ads on now, right, to see if it gets flagged before we run it on our main page. But when you start a new ads manager, do you have to start a new business page?
Negative. No, you can start an ads manager account, and you can go back and you can connect that pixel. So that's where, when I was talking about the walls and the Google Tag Manager, you can pull that old pixel in with all of your data and stick that in your new, or inside your Google Tag Manager, which is connected to your ads manager. It's just kind of a spider web back there, Perfect. Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Does anybody else have any questions? Anyone? Awesome. I'm going to let Shannon go, and I got to make sure we talk about data.
There's plenty of time here before, and as long as we're adding value to you guys, we want to spend time up here. This is a live Zoom call for us, so this is something that we kind of do 3, 4, 5 times a week, it seems like anymore. Building that. Well, let me start with this. How many of you heard some of these terms for the first time here today? Google Pixel, GA4 tag. I love GA4 tag. I like to say it because I sound a whole lot smarter than what I am, okay? And all of a sudden, I'm over here and I'm quizzing Dylan. I'm like, okay, break this thing down to me, because this is what I understand. I understand my second or third podcast with Gideon Zook, who says it's 1973, and him and his 2 brothers are starting a shed company. And his dad come to him in Lancaster County and says, 2 of you boys are going to have to quit because you're going to flood the market. So just imagine now, after seeing what we did, even during COVID and even post-COVID, we're beginning, to see that people are seeing increase in sales, even if it's a decrease in units sold, right? So the price is really, maybe stabilizing, I guess you'd say, in the industry. But it's a lot different than let's build some sheds, let's set them out there, and let's rely on traditional marketing. Why do you set a shed by the road? You'll get eyeballs on it. I mean, that's the whole purpose for it. If you were going to build a brick and mortar storefront versus a digital storefront, the first thing you're going to do is put in an office and put some product out there. So that might be equivalent to building your website. But what if you put your website Or what if you put your shed lot out in the middle of nowhere where nobody can see it? Where everybody says, well, that's bad, right? Because we want high traffic count, and people are checking on 4-lane highways, and we want eyeballs on it. And no one has to educate you and explain to you why you want a shed lot on a 4-lane highway, because we all grew up with this. It was a natural thing for us to understand. The more eyeballs that see it, the more human behavior might be changed, because somebody might actually see something they like, decide to go ahead and stop in. Now you have the opportunity to sell. And you might sell many different ways. You might sell like some guys I've ran across who's like, they'll come see me if they want a shed. And then you might see some guys that go out and meet you with a bottle of water, oatmeal cream pie, whatever it is, and you're really trying to focus on the customer and put sort of a very intentional focus on your sales process. But the key being, if it's not seen. So if your website's not seen, and that's what we have to talk about. Obviously, Google took sort of the platform whenever it comes to search engine. So let's start there with the 90s .com boom, and you had all these other search engines. You still have some show up. I don't know, what's the most popular? Bing is probably second. Yeah, DuckDuckGo starting, and people really like DuckDuckGo, and I bet in this conservative crowd, that's probably
They're owned by Google, so.
Yeah, yeah. Most all of that is, Google still has such a large, they have such a large presence in information gathering, and that's sort of the purpose for it. Whenever you Google, I don't know, shoes near me, you want to go look up where there's some shoes to buy, and you got 500,000 results in 0.332671 seconds. Now the reason for that is because what Google's saying is like, we're the most reliable place to get this information that you want. It's become part of our everyday vernacular. Just go Google it. I don't know the answer. I don't even have to know because I can Google it. So just go Google it. And it's become so common that search engine has become the most reliable source of data. And if you don't know, data has surpassed oil, even in the #1 most driven commodity that people are in search for. So like all of these things that Google and Facebook and all of that's why your little camera comes on when you start talking about beach balls and you get an ad for a beach ball. For those of you who are on Facebook, you kind of understand that because people are trying to understand human behavior at a level like never expected because they're trying to understand what drives human behavior. Yes, you saw the shed when you went by the 4-lane highway, but what made you purchase? What made you stop? What was the thing? Was it the 7th touch point? Was it the 8th time you drove by here? And it just kind of clicked in your mind all of a sudden. So we're trying to figure out as much as we possibly can, as much data as possible, so that we can understand human behavior, so that we can drive that human behavior to make us money, right? Go capitalism, yay America. That's just what we do. So, and we can't say much. We sell people storage for their excess stuff, so we already know they like their stuff.
Thank you guys for listening to part 1 of a 2-part series from our time speaking about marketing and sales at the Shed U event. If you missed it the first year, I sure hope that you guys will be there in attendance for year number 2. But for the rest of this episode, be sure to tune in on Thursday for part 2. Thanks so much.